The MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy. You win up to 305 times your entry with their pick 8. It's on the promo code MLB SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $2 in bonus cash on Fantasy promo code MLB SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Build your own betting model using their AI betting engine. Claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportscampodcast.com/rhythm, sportscampodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the MLB Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Sunday night, roughly 8 p.m. Eastern Time on July 14th. I'm your host for this one, joined by Adam Rosenberg, and together we're going to break down the Home Run Derby, which should be fun. It is officially the All-Star break. It is why we did not have a Sunday night game, so now everyone is waiting for baseball to resume, and that means a home run contest, which you can bet on, which is the most important thing, so we are going to break it down. Now, Adam, you've appeared on the show before, but we talk pretty much every day. Have you been? Long time no see. You look great.
Yeah. It's not as if you and I spend 80% of my data plan talking to each other, but this is good because this is what I'm good at. I think I told my wife I'm good at it, but yeah, let's talk about dongs, man. We are here to talk about dongs.
Should be fun going through the actual Home Run Derby. Now, they have changed the format a bit, so we're going to talk about it. I think the format itself, I think we're going to save the niche props for the end. If we want to talk about maybe the number of home runs or the distance, we'll probably save that for the end. I do think it's probably best to just go through the actual contest format. Since they changed it, I'll mention the actual contestants, and we can go from there. Sound good to you?
Yeah, nope, it sounds good. And I'll probably do what you usually do for the tennis podcast, where I'll be looking at odds as we discuss. So
yep. It's fun.
It'll be great.
So for the sake of the podcast, by the way, there are different odds and different books, obviously. So shop around. For the sake of convenience, I'm going to use DraftKings on this.
But I have that and FanDuel up because they have the most options.
Okay, I was going to say. So once again, if you do hear a line that maybe you don't like, you are encouraged to shop your lines. So you can probably find something better. But for convenience, I'm just going to read it off DraftKings. Anyway, time to get into the actual contest. But before we get into that, do want to remind you once again that we have a couple of featured shows this week, which is the Propcast. Munaf and Chris get you ready for the NFL season on the Propcast. They have episodes dedicated to season-long props and the award markets. They have Comeback Player of the Year episode done already, Coach of the Year episode. If you want to get your NFL bets in early for the upcoming season before some line moves, you definitely can do so. Also, check out the Bottom Line Bomb Show with CJ Sullivan and his road to $10 million. Tune in wherever you do get your podcast or on the SGPN app. Anyway, so now that we kind of talked about it briefly, it's time to get into the actual contest itself. Home Run Derby. And in case you are not aware where the All-Star weekend is taking place or week is taking place, because it doesn't impact the World Series anymore, it's in Texas. So it's going to be in Globe Life, which should be fun. I believe it's the first time the stadium's actually hosted the All-Star festivities, which should be fun. Point is, though, to go through the actual contestants for the contest. Pete Alonso is back for his yearly World Series or Super Bowl, as he's here trying to win the Home Run Derby again. If he doesn't win, he might cry. But you're looking at him at plus 340. You have Ozuna from the Braves at plus 400. You have Bobby Witt Jr. at 475, who I feel like is mispriced. We'll get into that in a second. You have the hometown guy, or I should say the home team guy, as you have Adolis Garcia going forward at 5-1. You have Gunnar Henderson at 5-1, fresh off of a home run against Rodon on Sunday. You have Teoscar Hernandez at about 950. I saw it up to 12-1 at some point, so it does seem like the line's dropped on him a bit. You have Jose Ramirez at plus 1,300, and unfortunately, there are no doubles contests, but Bohm's here anyway at 16-1. So, Adam, I'm going to ask you, since we briefly introduced the contestants, what exactly are the new rules that we should know about? Is no longer just a time-pressured, I'd say, adrenaline dump for about 2 minutes. What's the new format for the actual contest?
Yeah, so the new format is like very similar to the old format, except instead of you hit until you get outs, you get 3 minutes. You get 3 minutes and you get 40 pitches, period. And that is to prevent people from just trying to get as many swings in as possible within 3 minutes. They had this weird convoluted rule of, you got bonus time on top of bonus time, but I think that was just to sell branded ads. You get a bonus period with 3 outs, which is like the old school style. And each pitch is either a home run or an out, you get an extra one then if you hit something 425. But big picture, 90% of this is that people will have about 40 pitches. Shouldn't be too many more than that. So that's why a lot of these numbers that we'll talk about in a bit, where you have folks that are predicted to have 27 and a half home runs in the first round, would be an ungodly display given the ratios. So we'll see. But the big picture is like you no longer have the advantage of swinging as much as you can. It's now about efficiency.
And the one thing I will point out, though, is that the distance for the actual time bonus did change. It used to be 2 home runs for 440, I believe. And you said now it's 425.
Yeah.
So the bonus should be more achievable by the majority of the contestants, maybe all of them. But the point is 425 is definitely realistic. There were a couple of years where like Pujols was in it, and you knew there was no chance in hell he was reaching 440. And that way they kind of tried to even it out a little bit. But I'll put it this way, just a quick question before you actually dive into it. Do you like the new format, or what's your favorite type of format the Home Run Derby's had?
No, I like this format because it really should be based off of guys who can hit home runs within an allotted projection and bullets, not, hey, how many times can you swing essentially off a tee or off a pitch? It's a different advantage. Plus, apparently people were getting injured doing it, which, given that the All-Star game doesn't count for anything, you don't want more reasons for it to be silly. But I like this format. I think it rewards the right aspects of hitting a dong.
Yeah, from what I remember, that there's always been some injury rumors after. It's all hindsight. The player's bad after the All-Star break. They don't want to blame it on themselves. They're going to blame it on the Home Run Derby. I remember that happened with, I think it was David Wright, who did it like years and years ago. And he was horrible after the All-Star break. And then I think they just blamed it on the Home Run Derby. And everyone's like, all right, I guess.
Randy Arozarena got hurt last year.
Arozarena got hurt, but I'm saying with different formats, you've had injury issues as soon as the player starts performing poorly. So I don't know if the format actually matters or not, but they decided to change it up. I didn't mind the format they've used the last couple of years. I'm an old school guy, though. Give me 10 outs. I don't care if they're going to be looking around, looking at what else am I supposed to do?
It's also not good.
Nothing else on TV.
It's not great TV. I've also I went to the one last year, and I gotta tell you, in person, the Home Run Derby when it's timed is boring. And on TV, the timing, just do the outs. They all those kids running around the field, just do the outs. Oh boy, Porter's in the chat. Oh,
well,
boy.
the main issue that we had for last year's Home Run Derby in particular was how bad Pete Alonso's pitcher was. And that kind of summed up the issue. That summed up the issue with the actual time format, because your pitcher became so much more important because they had to throw the pitch exactly where he was going, like you wanted. And if he didn't, you didn't have enough time to actually make some adjustments. And that's why I kind of enjoyed seeing batters take pitches, because why would you purposefully swing at bad pitches, which is like the opposite of what you're supposed to do playing the sport, for the sake of the time pressure with it. But it's going to be interesting. We'll see what happens, but keep in mind that they did change the overall rules for this year's event, and we'll see how that ends up working out. Anyway, since we actually read off the names, before we officially pick winners, I do want to ask you, who do you think is mispriced and should be lower? And who do you think is mispriced and should be higher?
Looking at the odds, mispriced and should be lower is probably, look, I think Teoscar Hernandez's number is too long. And I think
I know it was 12-1 at one point, and when we talked
about
I
still think that this. I mean, you have a whole mush of people that are 6-1. I think Teoscar Hernandez is the most balanced player in this field, in my opinion. And I think that I think Marcelo Zuna isn't winning this thing, and him being, first of all, he's the oldest one in the field. He just doesn't, as much as he has a home run game swing, he doesn't have a home run swing like this. I think 4-1 is really short on him. So that would probably be it. But I just think spoiler alert, I'm really big on Teoscar to win this event. But I think that, he's still at 10-1. I still think that's too long.
Yeah. So I think it'll be convenient if we actually just go through each overall contestant, talking about some pros and cons. We'll start off with the longest shot, a player from your favorite team, Alec Boehm, the doubles magnet. 16-1 fair or foul, because I think we'd agree that he can hit some home runs, but in reality, it's probably not his best contest.
No, it isn't, but he is tall and he could get into a rhythm, and he has a higher fly ball rate than he did last year. He's got exceptional contact. He has really good swing. He's actually built body-wise for this type of thing, but his ISO is really low. And like you said, he's a doubles guy. He's not really a home run guy. And the big cap that I have on a lot of these folks, of a lot of them that are on my other tier, kind of I did like, because he has somebody throwing to him that did throw to him in a home run derby. That is like very key to a cap. The pitcher's as important as we know last year when Aaron Myers threw some filth at Pete Alonso and effectively struck him out. But yeah, I like Bohm more than his odds say, but I don't think Bohm's winning this because I think it's there's a reason why his odds are that way. His odds actually got to 20-1 for like 2 hours and then banged back down to 16-1.
I don't think anybody in this contest should be 20-1 because weird things can happen, but I would probably have him at like 12, 13-1 if I had the price of myself. So going through the next guy, you have Jose Ramirez, who is the only switch hitter in the actual contest. He did this before. I believe he batted righty the first time.
Because he was hurt.
I believe he's batting lefty this time around. Is that correct?
Yep, he's batting lefty this time around. The only reason he batted righty before is because he had a thumb injury and it gave him less pain.
Yeah, and he was in a home run derby anyway. So now that he's fully healthy, I do want to ask you your thoughts on Ramirez.
He's got the highest pull rate of anybody in the league or anybody in this competition, which is good because, like, look, pull rate's going to be really important because if you're in a rhythm and somebody's pitching it in the same place, you just pull it, it's gone, pull it, it's gone, and just you can do that. Obviously, with 40 pitches versus timed, the rhythm's not as important as it used to be, but the efficiency's there. His size isn't very big. So I don't like to say like, oh, size really matters, but he's 5'9", and that is just not built like a 3-round home run derby player. There's a bet with him that I do like. He's plus 190. There's only three guys who are plus odds to make the semifinals. I like his. It's plus 190. Especially because it's not head to head. I think that's a good bet. That's a bet that I will text you after the show to remind you that we're taking.
A reminder, it's top 4 that advance out of the first round.
But it's not head to head, so it's not going to matter. And he doesn't have the bat speed, but again, of the guys that have like a plus odds to get to the next round, his is pretty high. And like I said, his pull rate's really good, so stranger things could happen, but he's not built like a home run hitter.
Yeah, so I feel like for the next one, it's Teoscar. I don't know if you really need to say more because you just said you think he's going to win the thing. So I feel like we kind of covered that. I'll put it this way. When you said he's the most balanced guy, what exactly does that mean according to metrics?
Yeah, like he's got really good bat swing. He's got a long swing. He's got a fast swing. He's cut down all of his strikeouts and his chases this year, which people say, well, that doesn't really matter in a home run derby. Well, it does, because if you only have 40 pitches, you don't want to swing off of things.
You got to swing in your happy zone.
Right, exactly. And he's cut it to an absurdly low number this year, which is not what he's done in the past. So we don't know which is the real Teoscar. But my biggest reason why I love him is because there are 2 folks in this home run derby competition who are using very experienced pitchers going against them. Or with them. That's Pete Alonso using Joust, who he used when he's won. And Teoscar Hernandez is using Dino Abel, who has pitched in 4 home run derbies, including Vlad Sr.'s winning home run derby in 2007. That's a big deal. Time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think actually in that one, I randomly remember Guerrero hitting like 500 feet, which was almost...
he crushed that. I remember
it was crazy. Point is, though, I do like Teoscar as well. We'll get into our picks at the end of the show, though, but I think Teoscar is going to be one of them. Shop around. Do you see what's the price you currently have on FanDuel on Teoscar?
Teoscar on FanDuel is 11-1. So,
I
even better.
I see 950 on DraftKings. So once again,
950 on DraftKings, 11-1 there, and I do have BetMGM up, and BetMGM's is 12-1. Okay. 12-1. Actually, as we're talking, I'm watching it move. It moved to 12-1 as we talk. So the market's like, F this.
Yeah. I do want to ask you, though, since I forgot before, dimensions are pretty similar for lefties and righties here. Yeah. So you don't believe there's an edge
not really. Like there's a slight edge if you're lefty, like it's nominal. This is the best park for right-handed hitters. And look, the guy who has the most home runs in this ballpark ever is playing in it. It's Adolis Garcia. Obviously, he plays in it every day, and he's not left-handed. He's right-handed.
Yeah, but I wanted to at least bring that up before I forgot. Then the odds kind of drop in half. So Teoscar is at around 11-1 or like 950. Then you have Gunnar Henderson, who I'm sure the lines are going to fluctuate on, but I see 5-1. And I do think that he's, of course, a very solid home run hitter. He's proven it this year. You mentioned that his pitcher isn't exactly that experienced in the event, and Henderson's not experienced in the event. What are your thoughts on Henderson? Because we know he has the power. The question is, can that translate into this type of competition?
He's more, in my opinion, I got a 200-1 ticket for him to lead the league in home runs, so he can do whatever he wants in the regular season. I think he's not going to do well in this. Buck Britton is throwing to him, who's Zach Britton's brother. by the way.
Okay, interesting.
Pitcher. So nice deep cut there. And he was his manager at in Norfolk for AAA. He's never thrown in one of these. His pull rate's the lowest of all the hitters in here. The advantage is that he's lefty, so there is like because there's always a slight advantage as a lefty hitter doing that. I don't think Gunnar or any of the Orioles right now are in really great form going into this, but also just his mechanics of just how he hits. He hits hard, but he's a line drive hitter. He's not a fly ball hitter. It's a competition that benefits fly ball hitters, not line drive hitters. So I don't like Gunnar to win. In fact, the one bet that I've taken that's kind of to fade Gunnar is I took, and I guess we're probably going to get to him next because I think he's next on the odds list, is Adolis Garcia to have more home runs in the first round than Gunnar Henderson at plus 105 on DraftKings. So that's my way of fading a guy who I don't think is going to make it further on.
Yeah, I'm personally surprised that Garcia's plus money because, of course, it's his home ballpark. I figured
it's his home ballpark. He knows the alleys.
Yeah, we mentioned Adolis for a brief second. Before we get into him in a bit more depth, do want to take a second to remind everybody that we are brought to you by Automatic Fantasy because they have their Pick 8, which is live, and you can definitely make a lot of money off of it because you can create entries up to 8 picks, and on our goal, make a double flex your entries, miss 2 picks, and still win your entry. With more picks to make it, extra ways to win, the assignment is higher than ever. Best part can now up to 325 times your original amount. You can now use specials and boost on all flex entries. I'll use Pick 8 entries on injuries, rebounds every time, because why would I not do that on the higher? Don't forget to try it out before it is gone. Use the promo code MLB SGPN to claim your special getting first time deposit offer up to $2 bonus cash on a fantasy promo code MLB SGPN. We are also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Sports because Circa Sports has a couple contests every year, and they're definitely fun to enter because they are back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. And of course, Circa contests have no rake. Circa Millions means you pick 5 NFL teams ATS each week and compete for $6 million or survive the NFL Gauntlet in NFL Survivor to claim the $10 million prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th. Use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with promo code SGP. Don't have a trip booked for Las Vegas yet before football. Ultimate Contest Weekend is a great time to go out. Hang with Ryan and Sean and enjoy some of the open bar events of the world's best sportsbook from August 22nd through the 24th. Welcome back, everyone, to the MLB Gambling Podcast. Just finished going through half of the contestants so far for the event. I'm here with Adam. Now we're going to keep it rolling. Just finished with Gunnar Henderson, talking about why we actually don't exactly like him for this contest. Talking about the guy that you like to beat him in the first round, you have Adolis Garcia, who's around 5-1. This is the home ballpark guy, and historically speaking, home ballpark guys have done quite well in the home run derby. I'm going to ask you, though, about Garcia. Is he also going to be one of your picks to win this thing?
I'm trying to figure out how I want to play him because he's not in great. He's not having a great season, but he knows the ballpark. We know his power. We know he's able to do that. He's able to do this. He's 5-1 isn't really. I'm not really dying to grab him for this. Look, here's the thing. Most people are going to do 2 things in this. They're going to go to the longest odds, or they're going to go to the shortest odds, and I kind of did a little bit in between, but I do think that Garcia having played in this park or playing in this park is an advantage. He has solid bat length. He has solid bat speed. He's just not having a great year, and he chases bad pitches, and he's not efficient, which is not good in a competition like this. That being said, because I'm so down on Gunnar, but I do have Adolis in my top, let's call it 6, 5. Let's call it 5. I'd call it in my top 5. I think that that bet of plus money for him to have more home runs than Gunnar, I think is a solid bet.
I do want to ask you, though, which do you think has more value to it? Adolis to win the thing at 5-1 or Adolis' longest home run at 12-1?
Let me see if he had the longest home run. I mean,
I'm bringing it up because you mentioned efficiency. So as long as he gets one pitch, maybe he can hit it like 470.
His longest this year is 428.
So the answer is no.
Yeah. I got somebody who I like to hit the longest one, and I don't like them to win the thing. So
yeah. So just wanted to at least mention him because I know some people will blindly take him being the home ballpark guy, but it seems like you are kind of interested in going elsewhere for this contest. Now, I see Porter in the comment section talking about Bobby Witt, and that's what we're going to cover next. You are looking at Witt at about 475, which at first glance might seem very low. And you actually look at the distance. I just mentioned Adolis. His numbers over under 458.5, which is, I'd say, in the middle of the field when it comes to longest home run. Randomly, the second longest home run line for the over-under is Bobby Witt Jr. at 475.5. And I want to ask you, based on his overall size and stature, I know he's had a great year. Do you think that he's being priced correctly? And do you think that he can actually hit a home run 476 feet?
I do think he can hit a home run 476 feet. Brandon Porter, one of my good friends, has blown the punchline on this one. Bobby Witt, I do not think is going to win this because it's not a skills competition. It's a home run derby. And again, he is sort of built more like a doubles player. But that being said, he's got the highest max velocity, exit velocity of everybody, like by a mile of everybody in this competition, which translates to distance, which, look, he's also going to have a little bit of a hometown to him. He's from Dallas. Like his dad played for the Rangers. So there's going to be people there cheering for Bobby Witt. So I do like Bobby Witt for that longest home run being plus 185. He's just his longest he's already got one this year, 468. So what's another few feet?
Yeah. And it's also going to be from basically a batting practice pitcher.
Right.
So that
exactly.
should work out to his advantage. But
exactly.
So I do want to ask though, so why are you not picking him to actually win this? Is it based on just his overall swing? What is the red flag that's preventing you from picking him to win it?
The red flag is consistency of being able to do that in 3 separate rounds. And I just don't think that, I mean, like he's got all these great metrics on it, but his swing length is pretty short. It's similar to Ozuna's, which is a short swing length, and I want a longer swing length. And he's not actually a power hitter. He's an exceptional hitter, which is very different.
Yeah.
He's not my guy that just like, look, he doesn't bat like he's not Vinny P. That's not what his job is on that team. The guy, everything that we can do is bet him to hit doubles. He's another great doubles guy. He's a line drive hitter. I'm looking at stuff that since June 1st, he's got, of these guys in the competition, he's got the 3rd lowest pull rate, and his fly ball rate's pretty high, but he's just like he isn't put together like a guy that I'm gonna have for winning the home run derby. But again, he's faced some bad pitching, so he knows how to get something and launch it when it does happen. But this is not a skills competition. This is a who can get a rhythm and launch some moonshots.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that's also worth mentioning is mindset for the actual contestants, because if you have players that are constantly trying to hit home runs for a full 365, you're probably in better shape because you don't have to change your approach. If you're a great all-around hitter and you're willing to hit to all areas of the ballpark, then suddenly having to be a full pull hitter only trying to hit bombs might kind of mess with your overall timing and your swing consistency because it goes against everything you've been doing on a regular day basis. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's a fair statement. I mean, he leads the competition in oppo hits. I mean, like you said, it's about being in rhythm. Like Bobby Witt is not a guy who gets in rhythm and pulls a whole bunch of home runs to the right side, to left field. It's just not how he hits. And it's a completely different mindset than he's used to doing. So it's another reason why guys like Teoscar and Pete are guys that I really like for this, because that's their job. It's not Bobby Witt's job every time to hit a home run. It's Bobby Witt's job to get a double and clear the bases of whoever else was on there.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Now, I do want to bring up the next guy. We have 2 guys to go through here. You have Marcell Ozuna, who is around 4-1. He's the oldest player in the competition, as you said before. He is 32 years old. He has been, of course, having a very solid year. Started off very, very hot. I think recently he's been fine, but of course he definitely was an MVP favorite about a month and a half ago, give or take. So this hasn't been as good lately, but I'm personally out on Ozuna. I will factor in age because I think Ozuna is a prime candidate. We see it every year, who has a monster first round and runs out of gas. I feel like he is definitely a prime candidate to be one of those guys. And I do think that Ozuna, if he ends up being top 2 in home run amount in the first round and he gasses out in the semis or the final, I see that being a pretty realistic outcome. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. How often do we bet Ozuna single? Because we know that he's not probably getting to second base. I completely agree. He also has a really high chase rate. And again, doesn't totally matter in a exhibition, But what matters is swinging at bad pitches, which he does at an exceptionally high rate. So I don't like that he's overwhelming, that he's he's like 2 years older than Pete. So I shouldn't say overwhelmingly. He's 2 years older than Pete. And his swinging strikes and his whiff rates are high. So he swings at bad pitches. He's not built like a guy who will be able to do this in an efficiency exercise.
Yeah, I feel like, once again, if you were trying to compare potential markets,
I like that over first round though. Sorry to interrupt you. I like that angle. I think that's let's find the odds on it, but I think that's a good one.
Yeah, so Ozuna actually is one of the highest totals for the first round at 23.5. I do want to ask you, though, he's one behind Alonso for the over-under. Alonso's at 24.5. It's the same odds, by the way. Ozuna to win the contest and Ozuna to have the most home runs in the first round are both 4-1. I prefer the first round if I had to pick.
I prefer that. I like that bet. I like that bet a lot. I think that's the best way to. That's the best way to cap Ozuna. That's probably a bet for me. I like that one.
I think he'll fade as the contest goes on. So that's kind of how I'm looking at him. But the last one's going to be the guy who treats this like it's the most important thing in the world. It's why he's here still after all these years, and why he's going to be crying if he ends up losing. Trying to do the meditation right before he ends up going. You have Alonso at about plus 340. Now, we know that he is the most decorated member of the contest because he does it every year, and he has won a couple times. Has lost, though, recently, but he had a couple of, I'd say, underwhelming pitching options for the last event or two. Now he's going back to the person that helped him win the contest in the first place. Alonso, you know he checks every box because he's won it before, and you know that he actually cares about this thing. And his swing is tailor-made to be a home run pull hitter.
Yes.
So I'm assuming we're both on Alonso anyway, because why would we not pick the guy who's going back to his old pitcher?
Yeah, and the market's moving against him. It's kind of like getting it to look, he opened at plus 270 and now some places he's plus 340, he's more than 3-1. 3-1 for the guy who's won it this many times and takes it seriously, has a pitcher pitching to him that's done it before. Also, every single one of Alonso's home runs would be a home run in Globe Life that he's had this year. That's not the same for everybody in the competition. I think there's like one other, I had the note somewhere, but that's, I think maybe, well, I mean, Garcia, obviously, but I think J-Ram might be the other one, but Pete overwhelmingly, like all his home runs would be home runs there. It's just like, again, if Aaron Myers if Julio doesn't hit out of his mind, and he was the hometown person last year, and Aaron Myers doesn't try to strike out Pete Alonso in that competition, Pete probably advances. So I like Pete Alonso. Like, if I'm separating, if people that are listening, the way I would approach all this, I would take one unit and I would separate that amongst the who's going to win. I took it right now. I have a half a unit on Pete. I have a quarter of a unit on Teoscar, and I'm going to figure out if I'm just adding more to Teoscar, if I'm going to do another thing. Probably going to just add a little more to Teoscar, but there's other ways to play it. But for the who wins it, that's how I would play this.
Yeah, and I feel like it is worth mentioning with Alonso, since he has done it before, he knows how to pace himself.
Yeah.
Which I think is important, because
he listens to his headphones, and you see him bopping. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but the point is, last year, for example, Guerrero Jr. won it. And people remember Julio for setting the all-time single-round record. How'd that go? He was exhausted. He tired himself out, and he clearly spent too much energy in the first round that he had no chance afterwards because his arms felt like jello. I feel like that's an issue, and Alonso knows how to pace himself and how to prepare himself for future rounds, which I think is pretty important. So, Alonso, I don't want to say that he's a lock to finish top 4 in the first round, but if the pitcher is not terrible, he's finishing top 4. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I feel like he's a pretty safe option. He's the safest option to make it to the semis. And at that point, I think you like your chances. So I would go with Alonso. I'm picking him to win it as well. I think I am going to join you, though, because we did coordinate this a couple days ago. Now we're just going live with it. I like Teoscar in general.
Yeah.
I think Teoscar had value at about 12-1 anyway. I just thought that him being roughly 2 times the odds as Gunnar and Adolis, I thought was kind of absurd. So I do like the value on Teoscar. I think that's basically it. I think I'm kind of only looking at those 2 guys. I thought about Adolis, but you mentioned the overall chase numbers, which are concerning. And he's also it really has not had a great year. The home ballpark edge, though, has played a factor. But I think, once again, you mentioned the lack of distance, which can be an issue, too. So I think I am going to go with Alonso and Teoscar and call it a day. Teoscar will be my long shot flyer. but I feel pretty good about Alonso. Ralph agrees, but the only thing holding him back for the last event or two was his pitcher, and he finally made the adjustment. So I do think with that being the case, give me Alonso and Teoscar. Assuming you're on the same boat.
Yeah, I am. And I was just looking, I was price shopping a little bit because I was actually about to lock in. I do really like Ozuna to have the most home runs in the first round at 4-1. I was just seeing if there was a better price, and I don't see one. But to kind of go back a little bit to the Bobby Witt thing, player to have the highest recorded exit velocity on a home run, Bobby Witt's 3-1, which is the shortest odds on there. It's an interesting market, and he's overwhelmingly better at that than everybody else. It's not on MGM, it's not anywhere else, but that's a nice one to look at for that. But again, Ralph's right. I think Pete, this is what Pete is made for. Pete's hit 2 home runs over the last 3 days. He had at least one.
He had one today.
Yeah. So yeah, bring on Pete, back with Joust too.
Yeah, totally should do it with Quintana pitching as like a challenger to show up halfway through the event. But yeah, I think he had 3 home runs today. Point is, though, I do find it interesting that for the highest exit velocity, Witt is the favorite to have the longest home run, and yet he's tied with Alonso at 350 to have the fastest exit velocity. Doesn't that mean Witt has value? Because if you're going to hit the ball further than everyone else, aren't you probably going to hit it harder than everyone else?
It does. I mean, look, Witt's got.
I'm not a physics guy, but the math checks out.
No, he does. I mean, he absolutely does. He's also not in like the most hitter-friendly park, but I mean, I think he does. I think that's the fact that stat exists. I mean, Jose Ramirez is up there too with pretty high max EV. You also look at this, and the thing that I realize is Yandy Diaz, who is not in this and is on the Tampa Bay Rays, is a top 5 hitter in Major League Baseball. But look, the top exit velocity, max exit velocity of the guys who are in this competition, it's Bobby Witt is 8th in the league, and then Jose Ramirez is 11th, and then Pete Alonso and Jose Ramirez have the exact same number, and he's 12th. Adolis Garcia is 14th. So like, look, the right guy, and then Brandon Porter's favorite guy, Jesus Sanchez, is in there too. So I do think that there's probably some value on Bobby, but then think about this. If Bobby's going head to head against Pete in a second round, what's going to happen there between the guy who's making his home run derby debut and the guy who's been doing this before? And that's kind of what it comes down to for me, is that I think Pete Alonso knows this moment. There's a lot of people that watch this. So
yeah. And to go back to the exit velocity, that does go back to there being just one home run that you need. Like,
yeah, you only need one to do that.
Harder.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel. Point is, though, so I don't mind the actual plus 350 for the highest exit velocity. I think that could be a nice angle there for Witt, especially with his price being the longest distance at like plus 150. Why do I not take an extra $2 for him to hit it harder than anyone else? But I will ask
for everyone's own, where's the plus 350? Because
it's on DraftKings. There's an exit velocity. You scroll down and he's tied with Alonso at plus 350.
I love it. I like that. Cool.
Yep. So do want to ask you, though, a bit more about the actual props and some matchups you might be interested in. But before we get into that, do want to once again remind everybody that we are brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm is a great place to help you with player props because they have a lot of great resources. It is the go-to place to go for transforming complex data and tactical insights, empowering bettors with smarter data decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easier and more enjoyable. Their predictive models were born from MIT data scientists and from quants with over 3 years of data to help drive you to better AI-backed betting decisions. They also have great projections for WNBA and golf. Claim your free trial today, 7-day free trial by going to sportscampodcast.com. With them, sportscampodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the MLB Gambling Podcast. Just finished going through our picks for the actual Derby, at least who we think is going to win the thing. Now it's time to get into a bit more of the niche markets. We mentioned about the longest home run, mentioned about the home run leader in the first round, mentioned exit velocity. I don't want to ask about matchups, though, or any other niche props that you are tempted by. What are a couple of props that you think are just mispriced and you should definitely jump on before they move?
Bohm, Alec Bohm over longest home run over. I think
you mean the under
454 feet.
You mean the under, right?
Yeah, taking the under. His longest is 427. Exceptional things would have to happen for this. They're listing his longest at longer than Jose Ramirez, which I guess kind of makes sense. The guys who have really long, like Ozuna has one, like the guys who have really long ones are these prototypical home run hitters. Pete's 466. Adolis is 458. I actually like possibility on the over on the adult. Well, I don't know. I mean, the reality is that like Bohm's stuff doesn't come close to any of these guys on here. So I have the under on that. I like that for half a unit. I took that right before the show. See Ralph talking about Garcia's only hit 2 home runs since June 29th. The thing, keep in mind, Vlad was in bad form last year when he went to the competition. All that matters is if you're getting the right pitcher who's doing stuff and you get yourself in a rhythm. Garcia might be able to do that because he's playing at home. Pete certainly is going to be able to do that because he's done this before. And that's also part of the reason why I cap and I fade a lot of guys like Gunnar who've never done this before and are bringing someone who's never done it before.
Yeah, but you like Bohm under his longest home
run.
Bohm,
like the Bohm under. The Bohm under is one of my favorites. Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you on that. Conceptually, it's a doubles hitter in a home run contest. I'm not picking him to hit 450. Like 455 is massive. That I just don't see happening. Maybe he breaks 440 once or twice, but I remember a couple of years ago when Pujols did it, his distance was insanely high, and I slammed the under. The only time I'd be scared is if it was in Coors that one time where people were just hitting 500 because it was in Coors. But either way, I think Bohm's number is too big, so I do agree with that one. That does feel a little bit, I'd say, off, that his number's at 454.5, and you're looking at Adolis's number being only 4 higher than Bohm, and Bohm's longest distance is 5 higher than Jose. That feels a bit off just compared to some of the other lines. Now, Ramirez, I know, is a line drive hitter, so I'm not sure he's going to get there either. But you get my point. I agree with you about Bohm. I think that's definitely a good look. Any other props you're tempted by for this contest?
I mentioned it before, but I like Jose. I like Jose Ramirez to make the semifinal at plus 190. Okay. So I basically like him to be in the top 4. People are like, well, why? There's only 3 guys who are listed at plus money for this, and one of them I like to win the whole thing. So I'm not going to just take him to move along, which is Teoscar. It's Teoscar, Bohm, and Jose. All you got to do is get a little bit of a mush around that 4 and 5 happening, and then this cashes. So nearly 2-1 for this. I like that. I'm going to do a quarter of a unit on Jose Ramirez to make the semifinal. I think that's a good one. He does have the tools for it. And like you said, switch hitter. He's one of the few lefties that can do this. He's going to bat from the left-handed side. So, yeah, I like that.
I do want to ask you, though, just in general, the longest home run by anybody every year. It's a fun prop, but I'll mention it. It's 484.5. Now, Witt has the highest overall number at 475.5. Just for reference, by the way, you're looking at Ozuna at 469.5, and you are looking at Alonso at 466.5. So I just want to at least mention that. Now, for the longest home run by anybody, since Witt's number is within 10 feet of the actual number, how many players in this contest do you think can actually hit 485? Because Witt probably could if the right,
Witt could, but I don't think Witt's going to do it multiple times. Is the thing?
It's about 1, but I'm saying in general. Like, do you think Ozuna can reach that?
I think Ozuna might. Ozuna might. I think he might. I think Pete.
I don't see Pete.
And then I think that's it.
I don't think Pete will reach 480 something.
I don't know if Pete could. I think Pete's really more going to be around 450. Like it's really hard to hit a home run.
I remember him in Coors, and of course he had a couple from there, but he didn't even have the longest home run in Coors. I think that actually went to Soto that one year.
Yeah.
But I do think Alonso is going to be topping out more in like the 460 range.
I don't even think he's going to do that, man, because he's going to get into a rhythm and pull it. He's just going to go 430, 430, 430, 430, and he's just going to keep going to that.
And he's guaranteed the bonus time because it's 420.
Exactly. And he doesn't care about, he's not trying to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's another reason to like Pete.
I guess what I'm saying, though, is for the actual prop that most people bet on anyway, 484.5 longest home run. It sounds like you and I are leaning towards the under.
Yeah.
If you had to
I would rather. We just sort of eliminated of who would be able to, like, I'd rather bet Bobby Witt to do that. Well, it's plus 150. It's not really interesting to me. I would take the under because as I'm looking at the longest home runs in All-Star games,
you can toss out Coors because Coors was just
tossing out Coors, and then there was Judge's arrival in Miami where he was just clubbing balls at 500
like Gary Sanchez, and they had themselves a show. But yeah,
and but most of the time, and then before that, it was like 497 in San Diego. Like balls don't go this far. So yeah, let's take the under. Let's actually do that. I don't see this really happening. just because of just looking at that it's happened. It's just this is StatCast era, so but it's outside of Coors, like the top 7 home runs are all the Coors Field ones. So yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. I think we should take the under. You're seeing the best. What's the bet? What are you seeing? 485. Let's see.
You can shop around. I don't know what FanDuel has. I have 484.5 on DraftKings.
484.5 there, and then FanDuel's is, we'll find it, but I think I like that one. Oh yeah, 44 as well on FanDuel. So okay. Yeah, I like that as well.
I can quickly check offshore to see if there's anything there, but
483 on MGM if you want a worse number. If you would like a negative EV version of this bet.
Well, if you wanted the over, then in theory you would take it there.
Yeah, in theory, that's true.
Yeah, offshore is 44.5 too, so that's not really going to change. I'm trying to think of anything else that's really worth talking about for props. Anything else you could think of, or should we just move on? Any matchups maybe for the first round?
I mean, the Garcia over Gunnar just really stood out to me at plus money. I mean, it's the hometown. You're basically getting hometown plus odds on that, and I don't like Gunnar in this. So
I do want to ask you though for one more matchup, since you are picking Ramirez to make a pretty respectable run here. Ramirez against Bohm is minus 125.
I like that.
Okay, just gonna throw that out there.
Anything else? I like it. I like it. I'm just trying to stay away from any of the ones that are minus money in it, but that's a good price.
All right. Just wondering if there's anything else, or we just move on to our best bets.
No, I think. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I started looking at some of the like individual player ones, and keeping in mind, guys, 20 home runs would be essentially half the pitches. I'm tempted to take the under in Alec Bohm's total first round home runs, which is 18.5, because like either way, this is high, like because you're only getting 40 pitches. And like you think you're gonna have a 50% hit rate? Like,
well, you got the bonus time, but yeah,
true, that's fine. I mean, that's low. I'm just looking at some of these ones that are interesting. Pete Alonso first swing to be a home run in minus 175. He's the only one that I believe is minus odds. Jose Ramirez for some run plus 200 is. I mean,
on a principle, aren't you going to consider the no for most of those? It's the first swing of the contest. It could be a bad pitch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that Pete's the only one where it's minus is hilarious.
Can you bet the out on that one, or you can only bet home run?
No. You can bet plus 145 for it to not be that. For Pete.
I mean, conceptually, I don't hate it. It's like betting on a basketball player who misses first shot.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like most of the time you're assuming that. I mean, once again, I know that you have a lot of power with Alonso. A lot can go wrong to not hit a home run compared to what, has to go right for a home run. He can hit a 500 feet foul. That's an out. Like, I feel like people forget that outs actually might have some value if you blindly fade the home run angles, because everyone's betting the home run angles. It's a home run derby. They don't want to bet on the negatives, but plus money for an out, I don't mind that one. I think that's definitely worth something.
So talking about shopping around, Alec Bohm under 18.5 home runs in round one is even money on DraftKings, which is also pretty interesting here. So yeah, no, that's like there's only so much you could do when you don't have natural head-to-heads anymore. Yeah. But I like the overall under on the longest distance. I like Ozuna to have the most in the first round. I like Bohm to definitely not have the 554 or 454 that we saw in there. And generally speaking, I like Pete. I don't like Gunnar, and I like Teoscar. So if I can mix, and I like Jose. So if we can mix those things up, we're in good shape.
By the way, if you wanted an actual, exact matchup and exact result in the final, you can get Alonso beating Teoscar at plus 2,000 in the final.
Oh, wow. That's a fun sprinkle.
So that's something that you can consider. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for the actual props for the Derby. Now it's time for the best bets. Adam, I'll let you go first. What is your favorite play out of all the plays for the Derby?
Favorite play is that Bohm play. My favorite play is Bohm under 454 feet for his longest home run.
Okay. And I believe that line was around like minus 110 on both sides. So
yeah, it's flat. It's minus 110 on both sides.
Yeah, that was going to be mine as well. So I don't have much else
Double
to
lock
add there. Well, that was basically the lock. I changed it to best bets because we don't really have a dog here.
No, well, yeah, no. I mean, there's other things. I mean, my dog
would be the exit velocity. Would be the exit velocity on Witt if I had to pick one dog. Is 350.
Yeah, I like that. I think that one or mine would be Jose Ramirez to make the semifinals.
Okay.
plus 190. I like that one.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some matchups and stuff that can be intriguing as well, but I do think that Bohm line's too high. Every year, I tend to find one guy that I just think is drastically mispriced for his overall distance, and I think it's Bohm this year, especially if you think he's going to end up hitting less than 18, because that means he's not going to make it to round 2, and I don't know how many home runs you think he's going to hit, but that's really threading a needle. Let's say he hits 15. One of them has to go 455? Like, you're asking a lot.
Well, you're also asking him to hit them within that range multiple times for a guy that doesn't do it. Like talk about rhythm. That's not happening. That's
also my
no
point.
benefit to Alec Bohm to hit something. If Bohm hit one 450 50 feet, it means that he didn't pull it. It means that he hit it to straight to center. So, which means he's going to lose, because if he thinks the guys who win this are hitting it 395, 395, 395. Most of them are going to be 395 because they're in a rhythm and they got it the shortest distance, and it's not going to exhaust them.
Well, they also have the rule. I don't know if it's still a rule where they used to have to let the ball land first. I think they got rid of that, but I'm not sure.
I think they got rid of it.
It's not a thing anymore. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun contest. But I do like that Bohm play quite a bit as well. I'll be betting that too. Either way, though, I think that's going to wrap it up for the Derby. Don't believe we're going to have an episode for the All-Star game, because why the hell would we have an episode for the All-Star game if it doesn't actually matter? We'll be back in a couple days to get into the second half of the MLB season. Until then, you can find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. You can find me on the WNBA show. You can find me on the Tennis Gambling Podcast as well. Going to have an episode later tonight, so if you do want some tennis content that's happening tomorrow and for the upcoming week, have you covered there. You can find Adam on Twitter at Hey Rosenberg, and tell everybody where they can bother you on your Outlier streams.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll just tag you in them, and wherever find me wherever I tag Scott on Twitter.
That's pretty much right. Besides that, we'll be Zooming in private to come up with better bets in the future. Until next time, though, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.